Hello, welcome to another fun-packed evening, well at least an hour anyway. Joining me in Liz's sewing room, all my lovely ladies. Gosh, there's been some fabulous photos this week, hasn't there? Really super proud of what you're all doing. You're working so hard. Now listen, you don't have to work so hard, okay? You can take a break. Only daft people like me keep stitching all the time. That's because I love it. So tonight we're going to make the Sofia. I do feel we need to say it with a bit of an accent to make it really posh. So we're going to follow the instructions. I've got the instructions in front of me, so I'll just switch to the camera where you can see them, and I'll just come in a wee bit more. Let's get them so you can see. There we are. So these are the pieces that you need to cut out. You need 4 of the top bands here because we need a nice deep band and 4.5 inches wide each piece. So you're not cutting 1 4.5 and folding it. You're cutting 4 of that size. And like I say, I'm gonna rethink that, and I'll put amended instructions up if I think that should be longer. I do think it might have to be. And then of course we've got the main bag and the lining. My lining, I've just chosen a stripe, just because I had quite a bit of it. So it's using up what you can have really bright and zingy, which actually I quite like. But that fabric I had quite a bit of, so I'm just using it up. So going through the instructions here, we're going to now measure 3 3/3 inches from the outer edges of the main body pieces, pin or mark with an eraser pen and gather between these marks. So you're going to actually do this, and yes, my pin there and there. So you're going to do this not only on the outer fabric but the lining as well. Okay, so it's 3 3/4 inches. So we better crack on and do that straight away. So I wonder if my pen might show, so we'll give it a go if I can find it. Well, no, I can't find it, so I'll use a pin. So 3 3/4, looking for my pen now, I did have it earlier. So 3 3/4 is there, so let's pin that. And 3 3/4 on this one, thereabouts. I mean, this doesn't, you don't get too, don't measure, remeasure and measure again. Just accept the fact that that's just about right. Your straps are going to go right in the centre of that, so that's the only thing to be aware of. And then at the other end, so we'll go 3 3/4 in, which is around about there. That's it. And the same on this end here. So 3 3/4 and put a pin in. Okay, so that's the main fabric done. Nothing wants to move on my mat today, it's very clingy. So then we'll just get the lining in. I wish I could find my pen now. It's always the way, isn't it? I had it literally half an hour ago. So 3 3/4 in, so there, and I'll have to do that again now. Let's try and get it in so you can see. 3 3/4 in, thereabouts, so it's on that white line. And if I use my fabric as my tape measure, I don't think this is I think it's double-sided. I think it's the same on the inside as the outside. I'm certainly not going to worry too much about it. And then on this side, 3 3/4, so the white line in case my pin moves. And again, just a quick measure. There. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to gather between these lines. So when you gather, you're going to do a running stitch on the machine from there to there and back again. Okay, so you don't break off the thread there, you just go from there to there, back again, and just snip your threads. And you want to have longish threads because you're going to gather with those. And just keep it, I mean, we're going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch in. It'll probably end up being a wee bit more than that. So try and keep your gathers as close to the edge as you can, which is not always easy to do because that you know, that's, you've got to be accurate with your stitching, but we'll give it our best shot. So let's get the machine up. Oh, let's see. One of these days. There we go. So let's put the stitch length up. Now I put the stitch length as far as it will go, and on this machine it's a 5. Your machine may be slightly different, but we'll have a look. But on the longest length stitch. So we've got 4 pieces to stitch. So you can do this along with me if you are ready, or you can just watch and we can all chat and learn at the same time. So if you want to leave a comment, please do. Oh, let's take it off the zigzag. Did that before. And take the stitch length off again. So straight stitch and the longest stitch. And it goes quite quickly because it is such a big stitch. And then when you get to that other pin, you're just going to keep your needle down on your machine, swivel your fabric around. Now I tend to come up the inside of this stitch. I'm not sure you'll be able to see if I go on this picture here. That's the nearest I can get this to it because I'm using a different camera. But I've got my line of stitching going here, and I'm actually going to go inside that line here. I'm not going to go the other side of it. I'm going to go on the raw edge side of it now. So it does make a difference because it keeps you within roughly that 1/4 of an inch space, if you like. And also you've already got one line to be guided by, and it's amazing how your eye just sort of follows that line really. So that's one done. So let's remember that it's that little blue line there. So I just took my pin out. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go straight up to that other pin. There we go. And back again. So it doesn't take long. I mean, I suppose I go fairly quickly on the machine, but you don't, you know, take your time. Take your time. Right, so this is our stabilised piece. So it reacts in just the same way. It'll still stitch and gather beautifully, surprisingly. And I've already seen some lovely makes of this back, so that's really pleasing for me. So again, swivel that around and come back. So this, obviously you've got more fabric and it's a little bit more bulky to get through your machine. So just fold it over like I've done. There we are. And again. So we've got the last one to do. It's amazing how quickly this bag can come together. I think we're quite surprised because it's such a big bag. You think it'd take ages, and I suppose the stitching perhaps takes ages. And of course you can add pockets inside and outside. I think maybe make one, see how you get on, and then make another one with pockets, because I'll have 3 now. I think I'll have to give them away. Got 2 daughters, so maybe. But a charity shop fabric is a great way of finding some really pretty stuff, because you'll walk in, and if you go to the ladies' dresses, you'll perhaps see some fabric that kind of catches your attention. So that's the gathering done, or rather the stitches for the gathering. So let's have a look. So there's our piece here. Now there's people say gather the top threads, and there's people that say gather the bottom threads. Try both, see if one's easier for you than the other. I tend to just grab the top two threads. I leave the bottom threads well alone, they're sort of tucked under here out of the way. And all I'm going to do is gather this up. Now, just take your time, especially because the fabric is stabilised. And what I tend to do is gather it up really, really gathered, and then ungather it, sort of ease it out, because then it's already got the memory of all those gathers. So hopefully, I don't pull too hard. Doing 2 rows of stitches gives you a nice gather. It really does. It does make a difference, and there's less likely for this to snap. And you know, you say something like that, and then you think it's going to go, it's going to go, it's going to go. But if you're gentle and careful, you should be able to gather this up nicely. So don't forget to get those gathers right up to the part, well, the end, you know, where the bag strap's going to go. Like I say, the bag strap will go right in the middle of where you started and stopped. You don't need to measure again. I'll just take it as read that that's where it goes. So look, that's all gathered nicely now. Let me show you on the overhead. So there we are, that's all gathered from here, and I know that's loose there, and that's fine, because when I get to stitch it, I'll just pull that in a little bit as I go, sort of manually, if you like. So I'm happy with that being sort of fairly flat at the moment, but I will gather that bit up. And then we've kind of distributed those gathers along right up to the end there, and that's where my strap's going to go. Okay, so the next thing is to actually pin the straps on, so we need to stitch those. But if we get one of our blue pieces, we can see if we're just about there with the gathers. Let's have a look. So if we just sort of offer it up, let me just bring it in so you can see. Can't pick anything up off this mat today. So I'll just do a rough, look, that's fine. Even though that's hanging off the edge there, by the time I've pulled those gathers in, it'll be absolutely fine. So look, I'm really pleased with that already. So let's gather the other piece up. I won't bother with the lining just yet. We'll get straight on doing the straps. Now the straps, I'm doing exactly the same as I normally do. 2.5, fold in 1/4 inch each long side, and then bring those folds into the middle. I'm liking that technique at the moment because I'm using charity fabric, and as you know, and there's not always a lot. So if I was to cut 4-inch strips, which would give me, I wouldn't need to stabilise the fabric if I use 4-inch strips, then I would, you know, fold. It's almost like fold 4 times, so you end up with an inch strap. We've covered that before on the strap making video. And that is a nice technique, and I do like it, and I have used it a lot, but I don't always have that amount of fabric left over. I mean, the straps for this bag were taken from right just underneath the waistband of the skirt. I mean, it's a good job it was quite a large size skirt, so I managed to do it. So or I could have pieced it, basically. So look, there's my 2 outer pieces done. So the next thing is we'll just whip these straps up. They're nice and easy, aren't they? Like I say, I could have done this in advance, but I do feel it's quite nice to actually we do it all together. That's my theory anyway. So let's have a look and see if there's anybody watching today. We've got 17 comments. Oh, we've got some lovely people here. Well, you're all lovely. We've got Maggie, Marie, Maureen and Shirley. Let's see if I can get all of the comments up. I always have trouble with my comments. I don't know why that is. I have no idea why that is. But let's see if I can get it on a different screen. See if I can stop now. Oh, that's better. Got it all. Oh, got a massive screen of you. Don't lean in, everybody, I can see you. I've got Rosemary as well, and there's Jackie and Julie and Anne and Inez and Paula and Jane and Anne and Christine and Diana, hi. Oh, you're in and out as family in California. I've had a quite, I am sorry, Diana. It's just awful, isn't it? And Kirsty's from a sunny Northants. It's been lovely and sunny here. Well, we're not far from you, so it's all the same. Yeah, the fabric is gorgeous. Jackie, you've had a busy day? Oh my gosh, work. Okay, fair enough. So, let's do the straps. So again, as you know, I tend to fold these in half and get a crease. So I'll just finger press that. I should have popped that onto the iron before we started, just to get a rough idea where the centre line is of each of those straps. And if you finger press, that should be enough. You should have a good enough crease to follow, but an iron is actually better. So what I'm going to do is fold in my 1/4 inch and take it to the middle. The other thing is to consider doing straps in another way. You could make a tube, couldn't you? And again, you'd probably be looking at a 2.5 inch strip, because you want them to be, the straps to be at least 2 inches, 1 inch wide. You don't want it too much bigger than that because it gets uncomfortable in the hand to hold. So see how you get on with that. But also, you could buy pre-made webbing. And that's quite a nice option because it's, first of all, it's pre-made, it's nice and strong, it'll still stitch into the bag exactly the same way, so you're not going to, it's not going to, like a shortcut, it's not making it any weaker or anything like that, so it'll still be really useful. You could use the contrasting fabric to make your straps with, instead of the main fabric. It's just lots of options, isn't it? I think once you've made one and you got your confidence, that's what it's about, isn't it? You'll perhaps make 1 or 2 more, and you know what, now's the time to start making things for that that thing that happens on the 25th of December. Because these really would make great Christmas presents, because I said it, didn't I? I said the C word. Because you could actually put a gift in here as well. And if you consider that the skirt I bought was £3, a little bit of stabiliser, bit of contrast, the lining probably cost me, if I said £5, I think I'd probably be right. So I don't know how many dollars that is, Diana. I'm so sorry about your family. Oh my gosh. In California, it's just, that is the problem with living in those areas, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those things, you live in a beautiful area, but there's a few risks. I mean, the same in a way with us in the Fens, we could be prone to flooding. So certainly a lot of our coastal towns get flooded. Where I live, they've actually dug ditches nearly all the way around the village and through the village as well. So if we do, I don't think we'd ever get flooded because we're a little bit higher up. But the water would drain away, and to be honest, even when we've had really bad rainfall, there's never been any flooding in the village, which is great planning, isn't it? Why I couldn't have done that for other folk, but it is a new village, so maybe they had to think about that. And how great, lucky for us, wow. And the ditches are really deep. They're about, I would say, at least 6 foot deep. There's nothing in them. They're just dry grass. So the children play in. They're perfectly safe. The children play in there. And yes, if ever you've lost a bicycle, go and check the ditches, because they're usually tucked away in there. Somebody's borrowed them with or without permission, and they usually end up in the ditches. But now, like I say, there's no water in them. They're bone dry. Millie the dog, she would love to go into the ditches because obviously there must be some lovely tasty things in there. Yeah. Certainly we got some shops near us, just a little row of shops. Oh, she loves it because there's always something that's been discarded, you know. A few chips or a bit of pizza. She doesn't care. She's not, you know, she's not proud. But try and take it off her. Nuh-uh. I'm not having any of that. She's a bit of a case, really. So, I wonder what you've been up to today. So I think I have to read the notes again because somebody had been up to work, hadn't they? Let me see if I can see it. Diana says she's had tornadoes. Oh, gosh. Oh, dear me. Terrible, terrible, terrible. We don't have such bad things. I can't think of. Sometimes we have really high winds, don't we? But not tornadoes. Well, actually, that's not true because I think, is it Kirsty that lives in Northamptonshire? Didn't you have a tornado there, Kirsty, a few years ago? I got a feeling that you might have done. But I might be making that up completely. Right, so there's our straps done. See, that didn't take too long, did it? And we had a little bit of a natter. There we are. 2 straps done. So the next thing, we'll just move my lovely little machine out of the way. The next thing now is to pin the straps onto the front of your bag in the just at the ends. So the strap is going to go in the middle of the where you've gathered, like I said before. So what I would do is pin them. We'll get on the overhead here. We'll pin them in place, and then we'll put our facing, this part on the top. Okay, so you've got to remember to stitch these with the wrong side facing you. Okay, so that's the end of my gathers just there, look, and I'm just going to place that there, and this is the wrong side facing me, so when I flip that over, that's the right side that's going to come up over the bag. Okay, so wrong side facing, and I'm just going to pin that in place. You can use a quilting clip if you want. You know, I much prefer that, but we'll stick with the pins for the time being. And then all you're going to do is bring that strap around. Let me just come out a little bit. So I'm bringing that strap around, and I am going to pin it at the end of my gathers, which, as you know, is not very gathered, but we'll rectify that when we get to it. We'll just pull that up. And I've pinned, so I'm nowhere near that stitching, so it still gives me the option. I can still pull those stitches up, do you see? Nice and tight. Sometimes, you know, when I used to do this donkeys years ago with the children's dresses, I used to knot it. And of course you can do that, but I don't have the time or the inclination now to do that. Oh dear, the things we used to do when we were younger. So you're just going to bring those edges together now, and we're just going to pin the facing to the bag, okay? But all I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the ends together like that. Okay, so that end and that end are pinned, and then I'm just kind of going for the middle. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to sort of eyeball it. And when you come to do it, you can measure if you want to. Find the centre of your facing here, and find the centre of your bag, and pin it that way. And that's probably a far better way than what I'm doing now. And if you want to now, you can take your pin out of your strap, hold on to all your layers and pin it back through. So now I've pinned my facing and my strap and my bag together, so you can see the pin is the other side, and when I get to it I'll straighten out that little wrinkle there. And the same with this one, and again I'll pin it just a wee bit back so I can still move my gathering threads. So then we'll stitch that, and then we'll do the same for the other side. Okay, so we'll just come back to the centre and start stitching. So like I say, about 1/4 of an inch, a wee bit more if you want, because you want that to be nice and strong. Nice back stitch to start off. I'm just going to make sure my needle goes down every time I stop. If you've got that facility, it's always worth putting it on, you see what I mean. So we're just coming up to the strap now. I'm going to just catch my strap. So my needle now is going through all of the layers, holding everything in place, which means I can take my pin away. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that, and now my gathers are where they should be. So I'm holding on to my gathering thread, and I'm going to let go now because that's fine. So I've pulled that up a little bit, which is what I said we'd do. And then all you've got to do is just make sure everything is in line. And again, if you want to put your clips in here or your pins in here, absolutely do that. And all you want to do is just to make sure that your main bag and your facing, the raw edges are meeting, not because the gathered part will want to wriggle its way along, and you've got to tell it who's boss. And just keep moving that so it lays nice and flat. Check that it's still straight underneath, and then you're fine. So I'm just holding on to that while I take my pin out, so I don't want to lose my strap. There we go. And then we're just coming down to the end. A little back stitch. So now we've got our facing all done. Oops. So you can see already it's taking shape. Okay. So what I want to do now, while I've got this piece done, is to actually top stitch, and I'm going to move my handles up, and then I'm going to top stitch along this edge, and that holds the bag handles upright, and it also neatens it off. So you're actually moving those seams towards the top edge of your bag. It's a bit like when you're dressmaking and you sort of stay stitch your facing down, similar sort of thing. So when we come to it now, the machine will possibly have a moan about it because you're going through an awful lot of layers. So we'll see. And I might just ease it. And hope you don't break a needle because I've forgotten where I've put my needles. But just give it a bit of time. Again, make sure that all your seams are going towards the top of the bag. Don't be frightened of top stitching. I mean, I probably wouldn't do this in cream normally. I think you'd probably do it in a matching thread, especially if you're wriggling. So again, when we get to that strap, I'm just going to ease it a little bit. I'm not going to tug too much. That's it. And just let it do its own thing. Don't push it, pull it. There we go. So what we've done there is we've made sure that the straps now will stay upright. Okay. If we go on the overhead, you'll be able to see. Let's turn it that way so you can see how that looks. A little bit wriggly, but not too bad. And you can see how that holds the straps in place. So I think this morning, oh gosh, who made the bag? Was it Rosemary? Or was it Karen? And I wasn't sure about the buttons. I think the main thing is to make sure that this is attached at the top here. Although it's going to be fine, you don't want this really to be flopping about. So when we've finished and turned it through, I'd probably perhaps top stitch all that down so it holds. But I think that's made a super job. Love those colours together, don't you? Really nice. And actually, I think the length of that handle is perfect. So that was 21.5 inches. So you might want to go, let's say, for 22, and I'll alter the pattern to say that. So let's do the other side. So again, we're just going to pin the handle, so wrong side facing me, and they're putting the middle of the strap at the end of your gathers. And I was looking for the end of the strap. It's here. And again, you know, we talked about this gathering. So my pin is going that bit further down. And we need another blue bit. So you can see a lot of this bag is very repetitious. And once you've done the outside, the lining is absolutely identical. And like I say, you could add a pocket to make it different. I think it needs a pocket. I must admit, when I went on the train up to Darlington last week, I could have done with a pocket for like my mobile phone, to put my to mobile phone, because that's where my train tickets were, on my mobile phone, and also my purse, because I bought, well, not obviously, but I bought a coffee, and I had to rummage around in my bag to find it, because I mean it's such a roomy bag that I think a couple of pockets might be a good idea. Right, so that is probably not gathered up enough, so I'll just pull my strings a little bit and just put some more gathers in, just there. Okay, that'll do fine. So we'll start from there, and don't forget we'll pull those gathers again when we get to them. Again, a little bit of a back stitch. So I'd say really this is a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. And just keep adjusting, moving your fabric, get to that first strap, make sure your needle goes through all those layers, and we're just going to gather that up just a wee bit. So, and then we'll start adjusting this bag and the gathers, making sure those edges meet together, because it will want to wriggle. And then when you look at it from the other side, run out of bobbin. Yeah, so when you look at it from the other side, the gathered bit will be going like this. So it just needs to be told. I knew I'd run out of thread because I've been stitching all day today. I'm not going to even bore you with what I've been stitching. It hasn't been my favourite thing in the world. So consequently it's taken me ages. I had John editing. Nothing to do with us, nothing, you know, our lovely group here, nothing to do with that. It wasn't something I kind of put it off a little bit. I shouldn't have done, because now I've got to, you know, really put my head down and get it done. So I've been stitching all day, and the only thing I didn't check when we started was the bobbin. So, but once it's full, you know what? You know you're good to go for a couple of days, aren't you? Or however long. I always put my hand there. That's habit. Because years ago, this would spin off, wouldn't it? I don't know about you, but mine always used to spin off. I don't know if that's just my machine that I had at the time. Perhaps I had my foot down too, you know, too hard. Let's put that in again. No more fingers and thumbs today. Let's try again. Let's do it again. Let's just chill. Should have done my yoga. Not that I do yoga, but I have great aspirations of doing yoga. Right, I think that's it. Not sure. Didn't feel right. So let's just get this in here. So do you all stitch mainly with cream thread? Or is it just me? I mean, grey is just as good, but I very rarely use grey. Pretty much always use cream. So do you? I find it just to be the most sensible. Except when we're doing top stitching, and then I wished I'd used the correct colour thread. Don't you? So we'll just start again with that. Now, oh, that's lucky, because I hadn't quite caught my strap, so let's get that done. The needle's gone down, so all I'm going to do is find my long ends, which are around here somewhere, and just gather that little piece up again, because you know it will have ungathered. There we go. Smashing. There we go. Put the foot down, gather that bit. There we go. Super job. So yeah, so just keep those straight. Ooh, I just heard a loud noise. I think it was a motorbike. Or it could be a lawnmower, couldn't it? Oh, I know what it is. You might hear it as well, actually. It's the doors to the garage, which are just below me, and John has just opened those doors up. He forgets that it's really loud in here when he does that. So all I'm doing now is just move that over a little bit. It's just going over my second strap. Of course, when you do the lining, you won't have those straps to go over. It's just at the front, isn't it, that you've got the straps. The lining is much quicker and easier. So there we are. So that's that bit done. So now we've just got to top stitch that again, so it's lovely and neat and matches the other side. So again, I'm just making sure that my seams are all going towards the top of the bag. And the other thing to just be aware of is to make sure that the bag strap is fairly sort of straight, you know, parallel with the side of the bag, so it's not going off on a sort of wonky angle. It would be easy to do that. So again, we're just going straight across the top. Just caught a little bit there. Well, no, I don't think so. It's just how it's lying. I love these colours. They're really cheering me up. I've had a bit of a rubbish day, one thing and another. And I was talking to my daughter just before when we was having our dinner, and she'd had a bad day as well. People that said they were going to deliver didn't deliver, and she'd stayed in all day with the little one, and he was getting a bit fractious. Well, I expect he wanted to have a little play out, and you know. So there's the other part of the bag done, so that's the other side. So I have to say we're nearly there, because all we've got to do is the lining, and it's just a case of repeating exactly what we've done. So I'm going to do that as quickly as I can, so I don't hold you up. But it'd be nice to see the whole thing. I think it's always nice to see the whole thing from start to finish. And you know, I'm not Speedy Gonzales. I'm not going to rush this. I like it to be so you can follow it nice and easily when you come to make yours. I get so many complaints from people saying that it takes too long and I talk too much. I'm afraid, lovely ladies, silence on a Facebook Live or a video of any description is not entertaining. Unless you tell me otherwise. I know you won't. I tell you what I was going to ask you actually. Obviously we do this Facebook Live once a week, don't we? So we've got all of the projects done, and you've got the videos to match, and you can refer to them anytime. Is there anything else that you want me to do? I mean, I did the. Oh, we didn't do zips, did we? That was the only other thing. I remember now. I think it might have been. Oh gosh, names escape me. I'll think about it. I think somebody asked for zips, and I'm more than happy to do that. But is there anything else that you'd like to see me do? Because I'm more than happy. I'm in my happy zone when I do this. Sometimes it's the only time I have sort of a bit of personal time to make something and just have a chat. And sometimes I wish you could chat back. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Be noisy. Because you'd all try to speak at once. We had for work we had a call, like a conference call yesterday, and there were, I don't know, 14 of us on this conference call, and everybody was yibber-yabbering at the same time. And the trouble was, every time that somebody spoke, the you could see their picture on the screen. So it was like a mass of faces and voices, and it was very funny. I thought it was hilarious. Well, it did settle down after a while. So, just gathering that last bit now. Oh dear, we do talk about daft things, don't we? Yeah, so now on Saturday I'm going to start working on August patterns. Got 1 or 2 things in mind of what I'm going to do. So you could always have a little bit of input into that if you want, if there's something in particular. I know I've got the bonus pattern to load, so I'll do that over the weekend as well. Got a bit more time over the weekend because John is working away. Well, he's retired, but he's got a job to do in Peterborough. So he'll be helping. Actually, my brother is doing some work, and he's helping my brother. So that gives me a bit of time to myself, which is nice, because that doesn't happen very often. And so I'll be loading up the bonus patterns, just the little sort of case for the prim iron, or a little travel iron, really. So just get this last bit done. Oh, I've got a little bit extra, but that doesn't matter. It's only an 1/8 of an inch. I don't think anybody's going to worry. So the other thing about this is that we bag out the bottom as well, so that's the only other sort of little piece that's going to take a wee bit of time, because it's measuring, drawing and cutting. I need my pen for that, actually, ideally. It's very annoying. Oh, here it is, hiding. Anyway, let's put it there so I don't lose it. Right, so we've got the linings done now, so they're all done. So what we're going to do now is, in fact, let's look at the instructions. I haven't forgotten. Thinking to myself, I have. So no, done that bit, done that bit, done that bit, done that bit. Oh, that's right, of course we got to do that. We got to join the lining to the main body of the bag, so let's just get that one out of the way. I'm thinking, what on earth do I do next? It's funny, isn't it? I've made, this is the 3rd one I've made. You'd think I'd remember. So what we're going to do is take a lining piece and a bag piece, right sides together. Okay, so we're just going to do that. Let's, so straight across. It's a bit of a funny angle there. There we go. I could do with lengthening my stitch, really. I think it's on 2.5. And I like it to be about 2.8. Again, a locking stitch. Don't worry about any top stitching. We'll go straight on to the other one. So right side, together. And we're going to stitch along that top edge, that bit there. Okay, and that joins the lining to the main bag. And obviously you're going to keep your straps out of the way at all times, because they can sort of pop up between your stitching, and you'll be ever so cross if you caught them. I read a little Facebook post yesterday, and it was from a lady, and she said, I've just backstitched there, she said, just put my first zip in, and now I'm unpicking my first zip. Poor girl. So yeah, but at least she did it. Right, so now, isn't this fabulous? I'm loving it. So now, right sides together. Don't forget you need to leave a gap in the lining as always. Now there's no way I'm going to pin all this because we'd be here all night, but I'm going to pin a couple of key areas. And those key areas are where, let me bring the overhead camera in. So obviously the key areas are where these meet here. Okay, so these two bits of top stitching want to go absolutely on top of each other. Okay, now it could be that once you get to that point, they've wriggled slightly. If that happens, I don't want you to worry. I really don't want you to worry. The lining is absolutely not crucial. If you can get the main bag nice, great, because that's the bit you're going to see. If you don't get this lined up, don't lose any sleep over it. That middle seam also needs to be nested together if you can. But like I say, don't worry about it if that doesn't happen. Because you know what? I think you're going to make more of these. This is a bit like the laptop bag we made, where you make one and you think, oh yeah, okay, I need more. And then you think of all the people that would like it as a gift. So here, if you can, nest those seams, all right? Because then when we're finished, we will top stitch all of that together. So you know that you're going to put one way, one the other. I don't know if you can see that. One way, one the other, and pin. Well, I'm pinning one side so you can see. Okay, so I think we're safe with that. So we're getting there, aren't we? We're getting there. So I just need to bring my machine up again. Let's see if I can do this without putting my back out. And you need to leave that gap, and I would leave quite a big gap. But also you've got to remember that you're going to box these corners. You know, you're going to cut these corners off. So you don't want to go too near the corners, otherwise you'll be in a bit of a tricky state. So I'm going to start, let's measure, well, I don't know if I say in the instructions actually, but let's measure, let's say 5 inches from that first corner. That's where you're going to start, and I think you'll be fine by doing that. So as a rough sort of guide. So don't forget to back stitch again. Need that strength, and then just go for it. Now Diana, you were asking about making it for a smaller person. I'll have to think about it and I'll get back to you, because it is a big bag. It's too big for a child. It's for us grown-ups that need to buy lots of fabric. So I'm literally just stitching around the edge there. I'm going to stay at the front camera. Who told me that? Was it Rosemary? Oh my. I do get some funny comments. Not from you, Rosemary, or whoever it was. Somebody on YouTube. Oh my gosh, she was moaning at me about the quality of my videos. Oh my. I know sometimes my sound is a bit out. I'm just trying to get those seams to line up. They're not brilliant, I don't think, but they'll do for me for today. But it's because I don't, in this particular setup with the iPhones and iPads, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the go. I have to rely on the microphone from my big one here. Oops. But in the new setup, we're going to have a microphone, or I'm going to have a microphone, so that would be much better, because that's obviously closer to me then. So this is definitely more than 1/4 inch. It's not 1/2 inch, but it's definitely more than 1/4 inch. Because my fabric was cut on the bias, it's not desperately straight. But because of the size of the bag, it can take it. Are we okay? Sorry, Lois, not be. Oh, it's Jackie. Sort you out later, Jackie. Well, I think it's funny because I don't know what you're seeing half the time. Now that's quite a bit bigger, so I'm just going to snip that because see, this is where, because I've used bias fabric, it's wriggled, so I'll just trim that up a little bit. There we are. It does make a difference, quite surprising, really. No, Jackie, you won't be bossy, it's fine. I think it's funny because I do get told quite a lot. Right, so we're coming up to where these seams are joined, and hopefully they're lying nice and straight for me. Take my pin out. Don't ever stitch over pins. Now, when you do yours, like I always say, and I think everybody else in the land always says, you will do yours a lot more slower and a lot more careful than what I'm doing, because you'll have more time and you won't be talking to yourself. We are over the hour, so I do apologise for that. So just coming down to that far corner now with my lining. So we'll go in about 5 inches, thereabouts. I'm not measuring. But what you've got to do, really, is to get beyond that corner piece, because that's where we're going to box it out. So I've gone all the way around, okay? Now while we're here, let's just move the beast, mini beast. We need to bag these corners. So, and do you know how to do that? I'm going to show you. I won't want the overhead though, Jackie, so bear with. So put your finger into the corner. You can see my seam allowance is more than 1/4 of an inch, and then you're just going to flatten that out. Ideally, you're going to match the seams up, so that bottom seam will be parallel with this seam, okay? But we're in a little bit of a hurry now because we lost time. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm just going to keep that point as best I can, and then with my pen, just going to put a pin in there. It's a little bit out, but I can be forgiven, I'm sure. And I'm pretty sure it was 2 inches. I'd have to look at my instructions. I'm pretty sure it was 2 inches. So you're drawing a line across, and that's where you're going to stitch, okay? So do the same with the other one. Just pop your finger in there. Try and get those seams to sit right on top of each other. So that bottom seam and the side seam. I really ought to make sure that that is 2 inches for you, because I don't want to tell you wrong. 2 inches. So I'm using my ruler. So I'm going 2 inches up from that point. I'm just drawing a line. It's a little bit out, but we'll be okay. I think it's because my fabric was a bit folded. That's it, that's better. So I'm just going to pin that to hold that in place. Then we'll do the same with the main bag. Now that's a little more tricky because you've got nowhere to put your hands. Now you could open these seams up. Let me show you. And this is something that you can, if you've got time to do, it's good to do. And you'll end up with what looks like 2 little fishtails. So you've got like V's, and that's because you've opened up that seam, okay? And that gives you your exact point. So that's not a bad thing to do. Again, it's one of those things where it's a point of difference, isn't it? Now, you really want to make sure that both those seams are together. Put a pin through. So put a pin through here on that seam. I know you can't see very well. Right in the centre of that seam, and then wriggle it so it comes out exactly the same on the other side, okay? And that's, you know then that those seams are touching, and that's how it wants to be. So I'll just pop that to one side for the moment and I'll trust my instincts. So again, 2 inches, I'm hoping you can see this now, 2 inches from the point, and you're literally just drawing across, okay? And then we'll put a pin in to hold, and of course that could be the same pin that you found your seams with, to be honest, but we'll trust that we're all right. And then, oh, the hair keeps getting in the way today. We'll do the same the other side, so we might as well open it up, and oftentimes I don't, but it's good practice to do that. This is not such a big a seam this side. So open that up, open this one up, squidge that out, make sure that they are thereabouts. That's it, happy with that. Pop a pin in, just to hold. And then, I'm sorry, I'm still laughing at that. And draw yourself a line. So now all you've got to do is stitch those 4 corners, trim them. It's important to trim these because otherwise it's extra bulk. Nice back stitch. Take your pin out as you come to it. I'm trying to make sure that it's not pleated, because it's easy to get that pleated under there. You can just feel. So there's one done. Let's cut it as we go. It's a funny angle, isn't it? The H250 that I always use, it's quite a strong stabiliser. I do love it. And sometimes I'll even use 2 layers of it, seriously, to get a really stiff bag or whatever it is that I'm making. And sometimes I'll do the stabiliser, the H250, and some just nice wadding. Like I've just bought 15 yards of my bamboo wadding. So really happy with that. So again, across there, cut that off. That's one done. Just one more to go. Oops. Yeah, so if we get these other cameras working and the other bit of technology going, John is investigating it all. I mean, we're neither of us are technical wizards. We kind of learn as we go along, but it should make quite a bit of difference. It's really important to both of us that we get a good quality, and recently the internet has been really letting us down. Well, you know, you've seen bits and bobs that I've done, and it's let us down. So that's all the corners done. So now we're just going to bring our bag through. Obviously you'll need to give it a bit of a press. And like I say, if you leave a nice big gap, you're not going to struggle with any of this, which is just great, isn't it, when you're not struggling. Oh, let's see. Oh. So let's get those corners. It's a good time while it's like in this state to get those corners pushed out. It's difficult when the lining is in to do that, so that's lovely. Now this can go inside, but what I want to do first of all is get these corners out and just stitch across that opening. Okay, we'll just quickly do that. The thing is, if I don't do it now, I won't ever do it. Well, I probably would have to if I gave this to one of my daughters, because everything would keep falling through. And it's so annoying. Oh dear, so just fold in your about 1/4 of an inch and try and get those on top of each other nicely. If you're not too sure if you're catching both sides, then zigzag it, because a zigzag will catch most of it, if not all of it. And nobody sees it, so I shouldn't worry too much. So there we are. Are we still working or are we freezing? Goodness only knows. It's still working on my iPad, so I'll just keep going now because I'm too far gone. So there's our opening closed. I'll trim the ends off later and I will do that. So then this goes inside there. Come on. Now the great thing is I gave you the bag pattern as it is has buttons, and I really like that. It kind of adds a bit of extra detail, but that's up to you whether you put buttons on there or you could put little bows there, but the main thing is for me is to make sure that this top the straps are caught. If they're not caught, can you see how that looks? They could sort of flop down and that piece is loose. I think it needs a bit of stability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my strap up, get it as parallel as I can. So we're doing this for speed now. Speed stitching. Whoops, just caught my finger. That's why I do not like pins. Now your machine might really moan about going over all these layers, so please take your time. And that's possibly why perhaps I didn't top stitch, because there are a lot of layers. So look how different that looks with the straps like that to the strap like that. I think that looks a lot neater. You might think different. You might think actually I quite like it with them just, hanging down. Sorry, I keep licking my fingers. But you need to make sure that you've pressed this. I'm kind of making do. But I feel that we need to speed up and get this done. And this is just not behaving itself very well. I suppose I need to get the pin and poke it out a bit. There we go. So there we are. So that's it made really, apart from that top stitch there, which I could do now. My handles aren't quite lined up properly. So let's just get them straightened up. Because that would really annoy me. And also, if you're giving these as a gift, you want them to sit nicely, don't you? So it's good to spend just a couple of minutes adjusting, a bit like you would with something that you've, a garment or something you've made. So let's just now top stitch that. And I'll do that from the front, and I'll start just from the side. In fact, let's take the tray off, the table off. There we go. Now, like I say, ideally you will have pressed this. I won't do a back stitch because it doesn't need a back stitch. It does not a strengthener, it's merely decoration, and it's holding our straps in place. If you want to give it a top stitch as you go over the straps, just for extra strength, that is a very good idea. Come on, this really doesn't want to behave itself tonight. That H250 that I use is such a good stabiliser. I haven't found anything yet that pleases me more, perhaps is the right thing to say. But sometimes it's so strong that it's going to struggle over this seam. So I'm just going to take it easy and do a little bit at a time. Yeah, we're fine. If you think of the amount of layers we've got going on there. I love this together, don't you? And think about a pocket. And you could have a pocket on the outside as well, couldn't you? You could sort of plan it in advance if you like. And decide what works best for you. Put a pocket with a snap fastener on the front so you can easily get into it. but nobody else can easily get into it. So when you come to that last little bit, just go over your stitches by about 3 or 4 stitches. So you've doubled up on that little tiny bit there, but it gives you, it stops, if the stitches come out, that's what I'm trying to say, if the stitches loosen up and come out, you've got 3 or 4 stitches on each to still have that continuation of top stitching. So, let's put that down. So give it a shake. So there we are. That's another one made. Looks nice, doesn't it? I'm really pleased with it. And that was a skirt from a charity shop. Little bit of new fabric for the top. It's really a really roomy bag. There's a ton of room in there for stuff. So if you go to just your grocery shopping, you'll be able to get everything in there. And that would still go over your shoulder okay. So just wishing you a very lovely evening, and go and have a glass of something. I know I've got a glass of something sitting around here somewhere. We've had quite a long session, so I do apologise for that. But I'll see you all soon.